I am so excited now to have a chance to welcome our panelists to the stage and have them join me to have a broader conversation about the data visualization industry and about some of the challenges and opportunities that our different speakers, Andy and Jill, shared in their talks today. So welcoming to the stage, we have Andy Kirk, Louise Melgar, Lace Padilla, Jill Brown, and Abby Sola Oni. Abby, if you want to pop your camera on, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. I'm going to go ahead and give each of our speakers an opportunity to share a bit about themselves. I want them each to have a chance to share in their own words who they are and what part of the data viz industry do they come from? What kind of data visualization work do they do? And where are they joining us from today, or where they spend most of their working days? We'll go ahead and we'll go across the top line and then down the bottom. So let's go ahead and move over to my side, Andy.
Thank you, Amanda. Good afternoon, good evening to everybody out there. Andy Kirk, I'm a freelance data viz specialist, and I get involved in quite a lot of different things, whether it's training, book writing, teaching, design, podcasts, all sorts of different things. And I'm coming at you live from Leeds in the north of England.
Excellent. Luis?
So I am Luis Melgar, and a data visualization developer for the Urban Institute. But before that, I was a data visual journalist. I was working with the Wall Street Journal before joining the Urban Institute. Before that, I used to be part of a beautiful project with 10 stations in public media against America, covering like gun culture in the US, gun violence. Before that, I was at Univision, covering mostly immigration and stories related to immigration and Latinos in the U.S. And I'm in Washington, D.C.
Welcome. Abby, down to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abisola. I am a data product owner at a fintech company called Paystack in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm also a Tableau Zen master, and I've been doing data viz for about 4-5 years now. And yeah, Tableau is my favorite, so you can already tell I'm biased. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Jill?
Hello, everybody. I am Jill Brown. I am a public health researcher and program evaluator at RTI International, and I am currently working from Washington, D.C.
Excellent. And over to Dr. Padilla to close us out.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lace Padilla. I'm at the University of California, Merced, and I am in the Cognitive and Information Sciences Department. I'm wholly in the academic sector in terms of data viz, and I primarily study how we reason with uncertainty visualizations, like COVID-19 forecasts, hurricane forecasts, and so on. I'm actually one of the co-authors on the paper that Andy cited on what works in data visualization, some of the science behind what we know about data visualization from Steve Frankenieri and all.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who missed the initial opening, my name is Amanda McCulloch. I'm the Executive Director for the Data Visualization Society. My roots are in public health, global health, and international development. And I spent 8 years working in that sector before starting to work more broadly across different kinds of client work in data visualization, working as a consultant in tech. I am so excited to have this group here today and would love to kick off and give our folks who didn't have the chance to do some pre-recorded talks for us a chance to share a couple of their own insights about what are really one or two really big evolutions you've observed in data visualization over the last 5 years. And to Louise, Lace, Abby, I'll hand it over to whoever would like to jump in first.
Okay, I can go first. I think for me, the first, like what I've seen over the past 5 years is especially like where I live in Lagos and in Nigeria. It's becoming, because there's been like an onset of like tech here, like the tech ecosystem. A lot of people are getting into software development. A lot of people, like, tech is opening new doors for people. Do you get? Before, most people here, when they graduate, they're going to oil and gas or they're going to work in banking. Do you get? But in the last 5 years, like, tech has really offered an opportunity for people to do more stuff. And then not everybody's going to write, not everybody's going to be a coder or a developer. So data analytics is like an opportunity, and being able to do data viz. For me, I feel like data viz, I would say lowers the barrier, but it makes you able to work with data without even having to like start off with learning SQL. Do you get? So you can already manipulate data even without getting into the core technical things, and you're still providing value for your business stakeholders. Do you get? You're providing value for your organization. Do you get? So I think that in the last 5 years, it has helped more people like not doubt themselves and being able to like contribute and know that they can do data visualization, and you just need to work hard at it and continue to like practice, do more stuff, share your work. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Abby. Lace, do you want to share some insights from your side in the academic world over the last 5 years?
Sure. I think something that is maybe a relatively new occurrence is that I think people are taking data viz and the implications of data viz more seriously than in the past. I think historically everyone knew that visualizing data was meaningful, but I think since COVID, people are appreciating that humans are making life and death decisions with these types of data visualizations. So it sincerely matters the implications of the visualization choices that you make in a way that I don't think was as visceral as it's been in the past. So now I see people looking to research, and other avenues to kind of make sure they're doing no harm or trying to ensure that um, the best types of visualizations can be produced because they are aware of the implications of their work. And I think that's really excellent and a little sobering, but visualizations were always important. I think now we just have a really salient example of how they're used on a global scale.
Absolutely. Luis?
So I'm a little bit biased because of my background in journalism. So what I think, my perspective is like more from a journalistic point of view. And I think we see a more permeable industry in which like you see more people coming from unconventional backgrounds to journalism, people who not necessarily are journalists or I don't know, like from the data science world to do like journalistic work in data visualization teams, or technologists and like developers. But I see also the same process in non-journalistic like business that want to do more narrative pieces, or they want like to approach new audiences with the kind of like content that they have, the kind of data that they produce, and they want to do something that is more I would say like journalistic or narrative, and I think that's very enriching for everyone, like having people coming from different backgrounds and being capable of like working with someone who never is their first time in a newsroom, but they come in with I don't know, a background in statistics, and they worked before. There's a real example. I worked with someone who it was coming from the Department of Labor Statistics, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So like that's super interesting, and you learn a lot with that. So yeah, I think that's kind of a interesting like new trend.
That's one of the things I think I love almost the most about being in data visualization right now is it does have so many people who came from so many different backgrounds. And I think that makes me think of one of the things that you said in your talk, Andy, where you actually talked about data viz roles and then roles that use data visualization. And this distinction perhaps that we have about those two different kinds of roles, I oftentimes when I'm talking to groups and teaching or speaking to student groups will say, if you are going to go work in the professional services sector, someone at some point is going to ask you to make a chart. And being able to make a pretty solid basic chart is a great skill to have, even if it's not the core part of your job. So as we think about that, how do we support both ways to grow our field, reaching those people for whom data viz is one skill in their toolbox, and exposing the pathways and career opportunities in data visualization? And I wonder, Andy, if you have any expanded thoughts on that, since you had raised that point in your opening talk.
Yeah, sure, Amanda. I mean, I think the roles that use data viz are perhaps most interesting because, in a sense, the specialization that's assumed with the other, in a sense, sort of takes care of itself. But I think it's my exposure, especially through training delegates who come to my courses, and they're expressing a need to try to find a way to professionalize this aspect of their world. And I think for many people, they've been expected to sort of get by with fairly entry-level skills and be assumed to be able to navigate Excel and PowerPoint and just do their best, and with the best will in the world, as we all know. But then again, we're all in the data viz world, so we're biased. You can get by so far on instinct, but then you need to learn this stuff. You need to be sort of directed. And I think, although it can be in some way not a negative thing, but a concern that people who have got this as part of the role will never be able to fully invest and fully go heavy in the sort of education development cycle that most of us would need to go if we're going full time. I do feel it means that there's a broader appreciation of it. There are more people simply involved and aware of and interested in data viz as a result of this. But it's kind of what can we do next to, I guess, give a professional pathway, which is, I guess, another topic I talked about there. And also the third aspect to this, which is people who may have roles that don't necessarily get the hands-on data viz making activities, but they're exposed to them. They are readers, they are consumers of this stuff, and how we increase that side of the literacy alongside the creating side of the literacy is both an opportunity, but also I guess, a risk, in terms of progress.
Sure. Other thoughts from others who are joining us today on this distinction between data viz roles and roles that use data viz?
I just had a thought as Andy was talking that I think it's really fascinating that we're taught from a very early age to communicate with words and writing. And so most people have expertise in that. But when we think about the types of communication that really make an impact in professional settings, those can be visualizations, among other things. So it's really shocking that students aren't trained from an earlier age to effectively communicate with visualizations. So I think one thing that at least could support both types of tracks, people who use visualizations and people who are visualization professionals, is having visual communication of data be central to the education of pure communication. I think that's a tall order, but I think that everyone's starting to appreciate that aspect, and I think conferences like this will really help to maybe progress that effort.
Well, and Andy, you had mentioned, that opportunity of, we've thought a lot about academia at a higher level, less so in kind of that K through 12 space and what that looks like. And Luis, not to put you entirely on the spot, I know Urban just launched a new Data for Kids platform or program that provides some resources and tools for people interested in doing that kind of teaching and training for younger data visualizers. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I think that's an initiative from John Travis that I think most of us know very well. And I know they published today like a post about it. Haven't read it yet, so you got me on this one.
But any other thoughts from Abby, Jill, about this kind of distinction between data viz as a tool in your toolbox versus it being your full-time job? Is data visualization work either of your full-time job, or is it just a tool in your toolbox?
For me, it's a tool in my toolbox. I wish it were my full-time job, but unfortunately not currently. I think I find it really interesting because I see some of these shifts happening in the industry where data viz is becoming more important and people are recognizing the value of it. But 2 days ago, I got a phone call from a colleague who was very annoyed that I was asking questions about what color palette we should use. And so there's still some disconnect, I think, in, placing importance on visualizing, but not wanting to put in the time or the effort or the energy to do that. And I think we saw that in the results of the survey as well. The 3 top rated important issues facing data viz was lack of data viz literacy, lack of awareness of data viz impact, and that there's no seat at the table for talking data viz. So it seems like it's kind of a common theme, even though things are getting better, they're still, kind of stunted in some ways as well.
Interesting. I know we just lost Abby, and hopefully she'll be able to join us again. The one of the specific questions that came in from our audience is actually around tools and tool stacks. So if you're not familiar, the early days of the DataViz survey, as Jill pointed to, were back in 2017 when it was launched by Elijah. And Elijah has strong roots in the D3 community as an author of a library and everything else. So considering, the context within which and how the data was actually shared, someone asked, do you think that D3 is on the wane, or if that trend in our data and the responses that we have is more attributable to the respondent list expanding beyond the 2017 group that likely had many D3 users? And I don't think that has to be something borne out in our data. I mean, for those of you who are here, is D3 something that you're seeing become less popular and be displaced, or is that something that people are still engaging with and interested in using more? Lace, you're nodding.
Yeah, I noticed that in the data too. I thought that was surprising, but attributed it to the population that happened to be responding in that year. I mean, I think D3 is still incredibly important, and I think it's seen as more of an advanced skill. So I think that people, when you show that beautiful chart of the expertise over time, I think that the people that were more junior early on might be starting to pick up D3 now as they become more senior. But there's really great entry level tools as well. So I don't see it going away. But maybe others have thoughts on that.
Can you raise your hand if you're a D3 user on this call? All right, here they are.
Yeah, I think, and I think that I agree totally with Liz, and I think the existence of observable is just like it's a sign that it's just like growing. Now we have this thing called plot that I haven't used, but it's basically D3. So yeah, and I always like reading like job descriptions and to see what like the industry is asking for, and you can see how D3 is a standard. JavaScript D3. When we talk about when it's not like business analytics and they require other kind of like tools like Tableau or Power BI. When it comes to data visualization, positions that are more about data visualization, a lot of them they request like D3 as a standard.
I think also the emergence.
Go ahead, Andy. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say. I think also the emergence of tools like Flourish and Data Wrapper and raw graphs, which in different ways have kind of built upon the kind of foundation of D3, but take away the burden of learning it. So, as a non-hand raiser, that covers people like me. But I think it's also perhaps I'm trying to find a way to shoehorn a comparison or an analogy with coronavirus variants. Maybe it's just that it's the same amount. It's just that there's other variants emerging, other sort of spin-off libraries and kind of development environments are emerging. D3 is perhaps just as popular, but there's other things that are occupying people's time and toolkit as well.
Yeah, and Abby, I know you just rejoined us. We were just talking about this question about kind of is D3 on the wane and more about tools more broadly. I know you said that you're a big fan of Tableau and are a big Tableau user. Is that the primary tool that you use? And I think, how did you get involved and start learning Tableau when you said you've only really been in this space for 4 or 5 years, but you're now a Tableau Zen master? Abby, can you hear me?
Yes, I primarily use Tableau, and I've used other tools like Domo and maybe one. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. I was saying that I use Tableau a lot, and I had never heard about it before. And my classmate from uni said his company was hiring, and when I got to like they asked me to come and make a presentation on Tableau, and I'm like, what the hell is that? So I just went on the internet. This was in 2016. So I went on the internet and I researched and I put together like some shoddy PowerPoint presentation. Like I really knew what I was talking about. Somehow I managed to convince them. Can you guys still hear me? Can you hear me now? Managed to convince them. I did like 2 rounds of the interview and I talked about Tableau after doing like some research. And then they hired me and the Tableau practice. So they were a Tableau reseller and they were selling Tableau to like banks and multinational and government agencies. And obviously you cannot like, I had to demo Tableau to like these customers, because before you win them over, you need to demo the software to them. So that's how I literally like started learning how to use it, because I had to demo it to like prospective buyers. And then I also now developed personal interest. So from there I went on and I did Makeover Monday every day for like 6 months. And I built up like my Tableau public portfolio. And I used to blog. I don't blog as much anymore. And I was really interested. So then I started a community to get people like to introduce them to like data visualization. Because like I said, tech was exploding and a lot of these companies that were starting up need people to help them like dig into the insights that their company is generating, right? So and it just really took off from there. People started attending the meetups. We had in-person meetups, and you'd see someone that when they came to the meetup, they didn't know what Tableau was, and at the end of the meetup, they built. Even though your first chat is obviously never the best, but at least you feel like you've done something. Do you get? And you're being encouraged. You're like in groups. So and yeah, so we just built a community. People are helping each other on like Telegram. I'm introducing it to like people in schools, students, college students. So yeah, that's how I got into database, and that's how I got using Tableau. And then I used Tableau at work. So yeah.
Well, I think it's such an interesting point, Abby. And I point to the Tableau example because it's a very enabling tool. To your point, someone can show up at your meetup at the very beginning of a meetup, and a couple hours later, they leave having actually built something, which is something that you can't always do in all coding type environments. And so I'm curious to the broader group, with all of these different tools that have emerged, what are the challenges that come with these more democratized tools that really make it really easy to spin up a good looking chart with any tidy data set? For better or for worse. I know, Lace, I know you focus a lot on uncertainty visualization, you said in your research, and talk to kind of the ethical questions about data visualization. Do you have some thoughts on kind of the impact some of these new tools have had on the democratization of data visualization?
Yeah, I think when you're having people come in and they're relying on the tool for support versus understanding some of the theory behind the data viz, then it is incumbent on the tool to have excellent defaults. And because sometimes people won't make it beyond the defaults, or just some critical mass of people will always be using those defaults. And I think everyone appreciates that. But in terms of things like uncertainty visualization, where the work is always advancing very quickly, it's hard to get some of the new recommendations that we find implemented in tools because we're doing it just as fast as they're trying to implement it. So some of the things we find that confidence intervals, for example, which is what you see in 99% of visualizations, are incredibly hard for the average person to read. But that's just kind of this default, both in the tool, but also in people's mind, because the more modern techniques have been developed in the last 5 years. So I think tools have a lot of power and a lot of responsibility. And I definitely think the people developing them appreciate it. I just wish there was some easier pipeline to get some of the more up and coming recommendations implemented in these tools.
That's a great point. Annie, Louise, Jill?
Yeah, I think just I think there's probably the important separation between being able to handle a tool, being able to demonstrate a flair with a certain tool, does not mean that you can demonstrate the underlying craft. And I think I've encountered a lot of organizations that have just launched Tableau or Power BI onto a whole workforce and think that by doing that they've embraced data visualization as a skill set or as a capability. So I think, you know, the democratization, the availability of tools over the last 10, 15 years has been wonderful. I was thinking back fondly recently to Wordle when it was a different Wordle, and it was a word cloud making tool for the masses. But at the time, that also led to so many terrible, terrible things. But it needs to come with, you know, the skill set and the tool, the ability to be a visual communicator, and the ability to make that happen through tools. These things need to work kind of simultaneously, really. So we need both to be developed together.
Hmm. As we go ahead and we kind of think towards what that looks like and what data visualization is as a value within an organization, and really, I think data visualization in my mind is always one way that you enable people to interact with, engage with, understand, and use data. When I was working on global health projects, we seldom had a data viz project. It was a like data demand and use project that data visualization was one little part of that work stream, which I appreciated that framing a lot. And Bill Shander asked this pointed and interesting question and asked, is data visualization an industry? We're having a state of the industry talk about data visualization. And he pointed out that it's part of analytics, communications, business intelligence, et cetera. And might we not be talking about it as an industry in a few years when the world at large finally realizes it's just an essential part of about everything that we do? It's a language point of view rather than focusing on it as kind of a more niche industry. So is data visualization itself an industry?
I mean, I think it is. Like, you know, it generates like conferences. We have like tools that are exclusive to do what we do. You know, you have like it's taught in schools, in you know, in college, in graduate school. So there's like, you know, like we end up like working usually in other industries, as part of other industries. But per se, I think that, you know, we have developed as our own industry. And, you know, you have research that focus on data visualization, on what we do. So, you know, I think we deserve to be called an industry.
I
Jill,
hope it is,
or
because
Andy,
I've bought
sorry.
a DataViz neon sign for it. So otherwise, that's a waste of money. Just very quickly, I think again, it's something that we've been debating and meandering around for quite a while, and it always feels difficult to pin it down, given the kind of clarity that you might get in the world of architecture or graphic design or product design, which feel much more vertical, much more obvious. And I know that the information design folks will be shouting at the screen saying, how about us? And the information graphics people saying, well, ours is more important and you're part of us. So I think it's a struggle, and I don't feel I've got an answer. And I don't know if we need to have an answer, possibly.
I'm curious, Abby, being in a place where you've said that there's been a lot of growth in tech and in data visualization, does having a more formal set of kind of industry standards or professional standards help in terms of enabling people to move into that field, or feel more like another means of gatekeeping?
I think that people are just open to like what exists. Like, for example, when I started my meetup, I didn't even call it a Tableau user group because people did not know what Tableau was, right? So I called it a data visualization meetup, right? I called it We Visualize. Come and learn how to visualize data, right? So I think it's an industry, but it's not an industry. It can't stand alone because you need to tell stories, right? From data about a whole lot of things: health, finance, human resources, people, transportation. So it is an industry, but it definitely is not a standalone industry because you have to like work with all other, tell stories of other industries.
That's a great point. Other thoughts on data viz as an industry? Jill?
Yeah, this is something that I was thinking about as we were pulling together the report, because it's the state of the industry report, right? So what is this definition of industry that we're trying to speak to, and looking at all of the different roles and sectors that people responded to in the survey, it was really hard to kind of define and figure out what this space is. And I was thinking about it like something like writing, for example. Like writing is something that you learn in school, and there are tools to do that. But is writing in and of itself an industry, or is there something more specific that we call that, like journalism, for example? So can we think of data viz in the same way? And I kind of agree with what Andy said. Is I don't know that there is an answer, and maybe there doesn't need to be, but it is interesting to kind of frame and think about as we're moving forward and continuing to collect this information and try to report on who we are as a collective. Maybe it's an industry, maybe it's not. But yeah, I think it's a very, very interesting question.
Yeah.
Just to jump quickly in here, I don't have a strong opinion, but it just occurred to me that if we do give it a label like an industry, then that would suggest that there's things like ethics that we need to consider, and standards and principles. And by the sheer activity of giving it a label, maybe that would push some individuals to start to establish some of these standards that other industries have. I don't know if that's necessary, but I do like the idea of having some kind of ethical stances and or doing things like creating white papers talking about the direction or open areas. I don't know if we need the label of industry, but it could support those activities.
It's interesting the way words carry so much weight. We oftentimes talk, as Stevie asked, around supporting the professional discipline of doing data visualization work, and that with professional disciplines come standards and eventually credentials and things like that. And I thought Robert's comment in the chat also was great around the fact that a chart isn't just a representation of data these days. It's also a shared representation for people to discuss and think and collaborate around, that it's not so linearly and specifically about the data. We're moving towards the end of our session, and I do have to leave a little bit of time to share our big DVS announcement, which is exciting and going to be our big close for today. But I want to give us a chance to reflect on, kind of as a group, where are we going in the future in terms of what are one or two big opportunities we have as we look into the next 5 years as a data visualization community, thinking through the lens of where you are in the work that you do or what you've seen more broadly. Luis, I know we haven't heard from you in a little bit. Would you like to go first?
Yeah. Well, this is a hard one because, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in the next 2 days. So not even in the next 5 years. But I think that quite probably the big opportunities that we have, especially related to what we talked before about, like, these new tools that are so easy to use that everyone, more people are using, as Data Wrapper or Flourish, is we as a community, we can help others to be more data savvy, more data literate. And I think there's a great opportunity because, as if we help other people to understand better what we do, we also will have the opportunity of doing like things that maybe can be a little bit more experimental, or it can be more challenging for the readers, because if they have a better base and understanding, basic understanding, they can also increase as we or grow as we grow in what we do. So I think that's, in my opinion, is the main opportunity that we face.
Well, we'll just go counterclockwise in a circle. Andy, what do you think the big opportunity is for data viz in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I'm going to say two things, Amanda. I think the first one is building on the back of the data event that has been the pandemic, and the literal global audience that has now been exposed to charts and data and questions about the fact that you can't just capture this in a single chart. There's different aspects to it: uncertainty, trust, all these different issues that we've been talking about as a field or industry for several years now. So I think, hopefully building on the back of that horrible thing in a positive way. But I also think, and not to sort of blow the trumpet of the event too much, but I think Outlier has been a terrific mirror onto the field, and I think the diversity of speakers, the diversity of people on camera presenting and in the audience, I think shows the field in its healthiest state. So to be honest, just building on that membership, that brilliantly supportive community. I mean, it's such a nice it's such a nice place. There's no bad people. It's really nice. So I think kind of keeping that going for the next few years would be a success, definitely.
We'll take notes on that, Andy. Thank you. Abby?
I think that what Liz said about standards and ethics, I think as the community continues to grow, eventually there would be some conversations around, okay, how do we standardize certain things and how do we do things the right way, right? Not like anybody's going to enforce like this is the right way, but I think those conversations will begin to happen more frequently. Yeah.
Great points. Jill?
Yeah, I think I'll do 2 points as well. So piggybacking on the ethics and standardization, I think there is some momentum right now for equity and accessibility of data viz. So I think continuing to build on that and push those topics forward will be really important. And then directly from the survey data, one of my favorite findings was that everybody wants to learn more data viz, whether it's a tool or a new way of visualizing data. Everybody from the very new practitioners to people who have been in the field for a long time. So I think that's really great. And I think we can continue to build our community around that.
Lace?
Everyone stole mine. Y'all had such good ones. Yeah, I loved all of those. I think just one more point for equity is that there's a massive push right now for increasing accessibility. And there's some groups that have just been straight up excluded from data visualization, notably people with visual impairments. And so I think finding workarounds for that, we're going to have so many more interesting solutions if people who have historically not been able to contribute to this literature have a way to access that. So I'm just so excited to see the new developments that come from this greater inclusion effort.
Well, and I will say to the end of ethics and standards and questions, one of the things that KG, our DEI director, has very much reinforced with me and with us is that transparency and structure and standards can be a means towards inclusion. If people have to guess as to how do I start a career in data visualization and there isn't a clear path, that is a de facto way to exclude people because they don't happen to know people in the industry right now. And so that's part of the reason that we've been working on different projects and activities. Erica Gunn, our education director, has been doing some great work around career portraits and learning journeys. And we are looking to find ways to continue to celebrate the great things that are happening in the data visualization community. So I'd like to actually tee up a final special guest video speaker, since they couldn't be with us live, to share our big announcement to wrap up this session.
My name is David McCandless. I am the founder of Information is Beautiful. Just wearing my logo here. Sorry I can't be with you today for this meeting. I'm traveling, sadly, and things have got in the way. But I wanted to turn up and just make a little bit of an announcement, well, a big announcement actually, and quite an exciting one, involving the Data Viz Society and the Information is Beautiful Awards. I don't know if you know, but the Information is Beautiful Awards has been running for about 8 years or so, celebrating the best work across many different domains and topics, and has charted in a way the movement of data viz from being something of a niche, maybe journalistic, scientific medium, to being this front page feature and a real, true new medium for storytelling and science communication and just general editorial beauty. So we've been on hiatus at the Information is Beautiful Awards for a couple of years due to you know what, and we're just coming back now and reconsidering how we could refresh it and realign it with the scene and everything that's going on. And I was happy to hear that the Data Society were interested in partnering, taking over, and actually running and presenting the awards in an ongoing way. So that's what's happened. We basically, Amanda and the team, we've been chatting for a few months, and we're happy to announce that from this year onwards, we're going to relaunch the awards. The Davis Society are going to be running it. I'm going to be stepping back in just a kind of like advisory role. We're going to be able to celebrate and party and curate and display and just generally see a lot of the amazing work that's coming from the scene, that continues to come from the scene, and support new and emerging data viz practitioners, and give cash prizes, and basically just carry on the awards ethos. So I'm super happy that this is happening. I'm really glad that the Data Viz Society are involved. I think this is a community awards, really. It's about celebrating the community and the creativity of the community. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say, really. I'm really happy, can't wait. Stay tuned, announcements coming, you know, dates and so on coming. So yeah, thanks everybody, and look forward to another year, many more years of awards and celebration and parties. Mainly it's about the party. Yeah. All right, see you all, bye.
So that is our big announcement. We are excited to share as the Data Visualization Society that starting in 2022, one of the biggest awards programs in Data Viz returns, and Information is Beautiful Awards will be hosted by the Data Visualization Society. And you can watch for more updates and things on our various different channels and spaces. We are excited to have opportunities to help to evolve what the awards look like, continue to make them more inclusive, and celebrate more kinds of great data visualization work. And if you have any questions or feedback or ideas, feel free to ping me on the Slack and let me know that you're interested. We'll be spinning up a special committee on DVS to help out and support that. With that, though, that was our big ending to our State of the Industry talk. Thanks for teeing me up, Andy, at the very beginning, talking about awards. Grateful for that. And huge thanks to Andy, Louise, Lace, Jill, Abby, all of you for being here and sharing your thoughts and ideas as part of this conversation. I'll go ahead and let us wave ourselves off, and I will stick around for a moment to let you know where everyone is off to next.